Hello, welcome to Wednesday's Alienate UK with myself and Nicole. Our guest this evening, or today, or this morning, or tomorrow, depending when you're listening, is Maxim Furek. I'm sure I've just got his name wrong. I did say I'd probably get it wrong. He said it's fine. So Maxim's rich background includes aspects of psychology, addictions, music journalism, and the paranormal. He has a master's degree in communications from Bloomsburg Uni and a bachelor's degree in psychology for Aquinas College. And I've probably pronounced that wrong as well because I did ask him and I said I'd get them both wrong. But here we are. So I'm going to play the intro, bring him on, and then we'll just kick it off from there. So hope you guys enjoy the show. And for those that are listening back on the podcast, this is our 100th audio episode. So
wow, awesome.
We're getting there. So yeah, see you guys in a little over a minute.
Let's go.
Hello again. So this is our wonderful guest, Maxim Furek.
Well, kind of. Listen, Andy, first of all, that was a fantastic intro. I love the graphics and everything. And I've been on a ton of podcasts, but you're certainly one of the best. But listen, just for clarification, it's Maxim Furek, and it's pronounced Aquinas. And we just had a conversation about how you Brits speak the King's English. So come on.
Well,
I think you're just testing me.
No, I said to you, though, I will get them both wrong straight away. I knew I was going to do it. So I'm good at getting things wrong, so it's all good. But for those who are watching, not so much listening, because that won't make sense, if you look in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, we can see all the messages. So if you're going to write anything, make sure it's nice and polite. Otherwise, you're going to get booted out by Og, nickname, Gerald, or Jane. So everyone can see the messages that you're putting in, and it'll be easier for when you're putting questions up as well. So that's it. That's all we've got.
Awesome.
So,
and that should work cross-platform too, right? Like if it's going out on Facebook or anything, everybody should be able to see all the comments.
Okay.
Yes, but at the moment I'm only doing YouTube for reasons that I've explained in the past. So, Maxim, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on. Loving the background.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Those are the Greys, and there's Kurt Cobain. And I'm here in my office space. I call it the Citadel. And that was after the Rolling Stones album, Her Satanic Majesty's Request. They had a song called Citadel. So this is where I pretty much do a lot of my creative writing. And it's the most perfect spot. I mean, I'll tell you, if you're a writer or I guess a podcaster, you need that safe place, that spot that's just special. Has your everything. I mean, God, I love this. I mean, if you're ever in northeastern Pennsylvania, come on over. I'll show you. We'll hang out here. This is great. So
yes.
Oh, if you're ever in northeastern Pennsylvania.
I've told him. He's wrote the dates down, but I said you'll give him full information.
Yeah, I wrote that down. Yeah, if there's a possibility of being out in Gettysburg in July, I'd love to be there just to meet you folks and see what. Yeah, that'd be great. So, Nicole, you're in New York?
I am. I'm in the Hudson Valley in New York.
Okay, very good. Yeah. We were just featured on Oculus Alchemy. That's the New York city-based YouTube thing, and we had an article, program there about Dr. Frederick Santee, the White Witch. He was the high priest for the Coven of the Cata. So that turned out really good. That was just dropped, Oculus Alchemy, and there's talk about turning that into a documentary. So we're just elated. I mean, us authors wait for the doors to open. We wait for the universe to respond. And really, something like this, being on Alienate UK, being on your program is something that really helps me find an audience and gives me an opportunity to talk about my research. So I can't thank you enough for what podcasters like you are doing for authors like me. I mean, this is invaluable. Thank you 100,000 times over. This is great.
Well, thank you for coming on, because without authors like you and speakers, we wouldn't have a show. So
we would, but
you and Andy could talk to each other. I bet that would be keep that going for a while.
No one wants to listen to that.
We do that now and again, not too often.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you this, Andy. You have a very distinct Manchester accent, but do I have any kind of an accent? Can you detect anything? Is it American? Is it British?
I can detect American. It's not very strong American.
Okay.
I know there's something else in there, but I can't quite pick up on what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. I blame it on my mother. When we were growing up, my mother would tell us, pronounce your syllables distinctly. So that's what we had to do.
Right.
So
see, it sounds a little bit like being a typical New York. You've kind of got that twang to it, but then there's something else in there as well. I cannot work out what it is.
Well, no, because every now and then somebody says I sound British, and I love it. That's like 10 points right there,
Yeah. No, I think I get that because I speak to that many Americans. I don't pick up on the accent as much as what I would if it was just now and again.
Yeah. And just for the record, we're nice. We're not mean and crude.
Yeah.
We're nice people. So
we're mean people.
Yes.
Yeah. Wait till you come to the UK.
Oh boy.
Listen, we did do a Beatles trip. We went from Scotland to Liverpool to London. We went to Abbey Road. We went to the Cavern. I'll tell you what, of all the places I've been to, London rocks. It is a beautiful modern city. It has that wow factor. It's just, I can't say enough about London. We did the double-decker bus, jump on, jump off.
See, I still do that. I've worked in London. I know people in London. I love going to London as a tourist. You can't be, even though I used to work in the centre of London, and I still love doing the touristy thing, going on the buses, on the boat, the tube, going on different markets, the shops, Leicester Square, Trafalgar Square, Buckingham Palace, the lot. Absolutely love it. You can't beat it.
Yeah. I'm a product of the 60s, and during the 60s with the British invasion, everything British just took hold. It was like the most powerful cultural tsunami. I mean, you just took American R&B and just regurgitated it back. I know this has nothing to do with the paranormal, but it was just a wonderful time to grow up. I mean, we love that stuff.
Yeah.
So,
no,
so
it's
thank
all
you
good.
for that.
No, it wasn't me, but I'll take credit for it.
Okay.
Oh yeah, no, it's good. Right. So you have wrote a book, and this is a book you have written. It's also the title of the podcast, and it's called The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Can you explain what the Lost Tribes are?
Yeah, right. Well, The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot was published by Hangar 1. They're the guys that gave us Monster Quest. But The Lost Tribes is a metaphor, and there's a lot of theories about what Bigfoot could possibly be. So The Lost Tribes is a metaphor for all those things, whether it's Gigantopithecus, Australopithecus, i.e. Lucy, the Neanderthal man, missing links, whatever, that missing thing is, that oddity is. So we really don't know, but I just looked at this looked at this symbolically and talked about those different possibilities. And it's pretty interesting, just the whole history of Sasquatchery, how it went from the Himalayas looking for the abominable snowman and the Yeti to the North American Pacific Northwest Bigfoot. And then we found out that, wait a second, this is nothing new. The people in British Columbia had talked about Sasquatch for thousands of years. So what the white man found out about around 1958 had been going down in British Columbia with the coastal peoples in storytelling and totem poles and all of that spoken language. And they believed that to see a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch, was a sacred thing. They believed that Sasquatch actually was a protector of the environment. So it was all, it was all good. It's just the most fascinating aspect. And I just love researching and talking about Bigfoot because it's just everybody has something to say about it. There's a lot of common denominators there.
So is Bigfoot like your main genre in the paranormal?
No, it's really not. I don't know. You could, and maybe it's the role of podcasters like you to maybe help put us into a little slot or a genre. I don't know, but I've written books on ufology, the flying saucer esoteric, on Bigfoot. I've written a book called Co-Region Hoodoo, which is a composite. It's almost like an encyclopedia of the paranormal. But the thing that really rings my bell is what I call Catholic mysticism. And as a former altar boy, I take a look at things like apparitions, spirit guides, guardian angels, demonology. In Co-Region Hoodoo, I had met Ed and Lorraine Warren, who was responsible for the Conjuring franchise. Now, everybody knows that's the most popular, the most successful horror franchise in history. 9 motion pictures worth something like $2.1 billion, and that's with a B. And I had a chance to meet them in 1988. Ed and Lorraine were going on a 15-city book tour to promote their book, The Haunted. The Haunted was all about the Schmurl haunting in northeastern Pennsylvania. That was right next door to me. So I was going there, talking to people, doing interviews and all that. I met Ed and Lorraine. I took pictures of them that are in my book. I kept in contact with them over the years. And I would ask Paul Ed and say, how exactly, again, did you go and fight these demons? And Ed would talk about how he would assume the cloak of Jesus Christ, of Padre Pio, of St. Michael the Archangel, and he would do battle with these demonic forces. Of course, he would use the crucifix and he would use holy water, but he was just interesting. And some people believed him, some people didn't. But I have this theory I put together, and I call it the universal rule of 90. And forget about the 100. I know you guys in the UK think in terms of that. Well, I think in terms of 90. 30, in any given moment, like with Ed and Lorraine Warren, 30% of the people are going to believe that was true. 30% are going to believe that they're hoaxers, and 30% are going to be on the bias. They don't know either way, but they could be swayed either way. So again, nothing's a given. And it's maybe even with acceptance and popularity and everything else, 30, 30, and 30, 30% of the people are going to love your podcast. 30% are going to hate it for all the right reasons. And then 30% are out there that you can work and sway over. So, I don't think there's anything beyond that. But Ed and Lorraine were fascinating people. They were very kind to me. They almost held my hand and walked me through this thing. And, Lorraine had a pet rooster, and I would call him up and you could hear the rooster in the background and all this. So it was pretty neat. They lived in Connecticut. They were relatively close, and I considered them friends, certainly. So, but they taught me a lot about demonology. And I will say this, I believe that evil exists. I believe the devil exists. And I think a lot of people think that it's old-fashioned thinking to believe in those terms because the church used that as a weapon, to keep us afraid. If you don't go to church, the devil's going to get you. If you don't be good, the devil's going to get you. So, we were filled with that, so I had a head filled with that, but I still believe that, that evil does exist and it does manifest. And I'm sure you've interviewed tons of people that go out there ghost hunting, looking for demons.
I've been out myself and come across weird entities. I won't go into it now, but
sure,
one of them was quite a big thing that went on. And after I spoke with whatever this was, after I walked away, I just got in my head that I just spoke to the devil.
Wow.
So, and that was, and even now, going back, because we went back to the place last week, met with Nickname, who's in the chat, and some of her family. And even then, going back, it's still, nothing's changed from that initial thought. I still believe it was the devil.
And what was
sorry, go on.
What was your feeling? I mean, what was your emotion that you experienced at that time?
At the time when I was talking to him, like I'm talking to you, I was just explaining what I was doing. It was in the cemetery, what I was doing. I apologized for blinding him with my flashlight, all that kind of stuff. And then I walked away to meet up with my mate. And as I got about, probably even that far, about 70 yards away, I was like, that was the devil. It was like everything, normality kicked in. But when I was there, it seemed normal. It wasn't until I broke whatever link it was that was making me feel that it did what it did.
Yeah. Yeah, that has to be a terrifying thing when you come to grips with that. I was recently presented at the Butler, Pennsylvania Paranormal Conference. And on stage with me was the psychic Vincent sisters. So they were up there doing their presentation, and they're this group of psychics who help the police find, murderers or missing people and all that. And say they were giving their presentation, and this one guy stood up, and here he was a ghost hunter, and he didn't belong to any organized group. He went by himself, but he woke up. He was sleeping. He woke up and he was being attacked by what he thought was a demon. And he showed pictures. He was ripped up. He had scars on his chest. I mean, humongous scars.
Oh.
And his eyes, I was like an eyeball peeking out. I mean, he was really ripped up big time. And he showed the pictures. And the psychic Vincent sisters believed that there was an attachment, an evil attachment that he somehow ran into during his ghost hunting experiences. And he would go by himself, whether it was a shut down mental institution or former prison or whatever. But they felt that there was an attachment to him, and that's what happened. And they were recommending lots and lots of holy water and crucifixes. That was their fix.
Yeah.
But it was it was frightening to see that. It was very graphic.
Yeah, I've never experienced anything like that. You've not, have you, Nicole?
I have never experienced it. Like, I've experienced negative spirits, but they were just, assholes in life, assholes in death kind of thing. It was never anything like super dark or demonic.
Yeah.
They talk about women's intuition and all that. Do you think that you can perceive, say, if somebody had an evil aura or if they were meant to do bad? Can you catch up on that vibe? Can you see it? Can you feel it or see an aura or any of that?
I don't see an aura, but I can feel if someone's got negative energy. Same as if you go into a building, it could be a shop, it could be anything, somebody's house. But I don't see anything, but I get the gut feeling, and from doing this, I just go with my gut instincts now. I don't question it. Do not question it. If my gut's saying da, that's what I'm doing. I'm not hanging about.
there's something different about like a woman's approach to paranormal investigation, because I'm part of an all-female team, and we definitely approach things a little differently, and we get a lot of different results because of that. Like we have more, women and children coming through. And sometimes we'll get like a very aggressive like male spirit that's like, nope, no women allowed, but we definitely have more of a connection with like the women and the children.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you see auras? Do you pick up on negative or positive frequencies?
No, I don't. On the psychic side, I don't have a whole lot going for me. My only thing that I think is of interest is that I saw flying saucers. I'm a former Vietnam veteran. I was a radarman aboard the USS Constellation. And little side note, I was on the Constellation, an aircraft carrier. We did war trials, war duty with other carriers, one of which was the Bonhomme Richard. That one was commanded by Commander Morrison, Jim Morrison of the Doors' father, the Bonhomme Richard. Well, that was some interesting stories that happened with that. But when I was a radarman, I saw numerous flying saucers. We called them bogies. We put them in the logbook. We had their, thank you, Big Red. We put them in the logbook, and we would put their range and bearing. They were faster and more maneuverable than any guided missile we had or the Soviets had. I mean, they were fast, and they were tangible. It wasn't hallucinations. It wasn't marsh gas. It wasn't a reflection from Venus. It was solid. It was the same thing that they saw in 2004 aboard the USS Nimitz. They were Navy pilots were flying there off the coast of San Diego, and they saw that TikTok video that hovered, went back and forth, a tremendous G-force that no human being could withstand, and then it submerged and went underwater. The Pentagon, that had changed the term UFO to UAP, unidentified area phenomenon, then changed it to UAP, unidentified anomalous phenomenon, because this sucker went under the water. Yeah. So, things just got really crazier. But this 2004 United States Navy video is what I would call very solid evidence that there's something there. We don't know what it is. Either ours, theirs, or somebody else's. Those are your three possibilities.
Yeah.
Nothing more than that.
So where do you believe they come from? Or do you think that they come from different origins?
Well, that's a good question. That's, a lot of us used to think that they came from Planet X. They traveled from light years away and came here, and they're studying us, or they're going to use us for evil purposes or whatever, and or like the Anunnaki, we're going to use us for slave labor to mine the gold, all of that. But Jacques Vallée was the one that said, wait a second, that extraterrestrial theory doesn't work anymore. That's old fashioned. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It defies common sense to think that space brothers could travel trillions of years, getting from A to B, using this unheard of technology and the propulsion and all that. It's just too long, too far, too arduous. It can't be done. So Jacques Vallée talked about the interdimensional theory, that just maybe these entities, and I believe it goes for both Bigfoot and UFOs, that they shapeshift in between dimensions. And Jacques Vallée wasn't unique in this. Einstein and Rosen talked about the bridge theory, that if you take a space-time continuum and you fold it in half, you could go and punch through it, in seconds. And that's the one that Jacques Vallée started to talk about. That makes more sense to me than anything else. And Andy and Nicole, when you use the scientific method, when you take a look at some of these theories, like, the extraterrestrial theory, you look at that, and again, it doesn't seem to make sense. It's just not possible or probable. The interdimensional theory just seems, even though it's a hypothesis and hasn't been proven, it seems to make more sense. And that may be where we need to place our focus, to study, to try to figure out what it is. And I believe that both Bigfoot and flying saucers go through that space-time continuum, that parallel universe or dimensional thing. And they're here and then they're there. So
do you think it's just Bigfoot and UFOs that fall into that category? Or do you think it's other cryptids? If it's what we think of as ghosts?
Yeah, I think, well, that's a good question. And again, we're getting into, when we're getting into the actual definition of the paranormal, like where does it begin? Where does it end? How high is it? How deep? All of that. And I think the paranormal encompasses pretty much everything. It's that ectoplasmic goo, it's that thing, that residue, that energy, that vibration that encompasses everything. And, our spirit, I think that some people have the ability to raise their level of consciousness and their vibration level, and maybe they can tap into these things and see certain things. So I think we all have that innate ability, but the reason that we don't tap into it, because like guys like me and Andy are busy doing our and you, Nicole, are busy doing our 9 to 5. We're filled with clutter and white noise and everything else. I mean, if my only goal in life was to go and tap into my innate psychic abilities, I might be able to do something. I might be able to be levitating as I'm talking to you, but I can't. I mean, my life's too busy. I got too much of the monkey mind. I mean, I'm like everybody else, but there are people, ascetics and monks and people that have devoted their life to God, to their higher power. They've been able to do that. People like Saint Teresa of Avila, who said, she was a 17th century Spanish mystic. Saint Teresa said that through prayer and meditation, we can reach higher levels of ecstasy, rapture, and what she called flight of the soul, which is an out-of-body experience. Yeah. And in my Shepton book, the Shepton Mythology, I talked about the miners that actually had this out-of-body experience. They went up there and looked down on the rescue team, and they were able to see all that. So St. Teresa was pretty amazing. There's documentation that she actually levitated through the power of prayer and meditation. The nuns had to hold her down. But just an amazing individual. And Saint Teresa decided to become a zealot for Christ. She believed that she was married to Christ. She became a Catholic during the Protestant Reformation, during the Spanish Inquisition, when they were hunting Catholics down. So, she picked the wrong time to choose that life. But she was a cool. I am in love with Saint Teresa of Avila, so I'm going to say that now. You know what I mean? And she's in my book, Coleridge and Hoodoo. I have a chapter about her, so I like her a lot.
Oh, cool. So, do you think that we are then part of the paranormal? We have a piece to play?
Yeah, I think we do. I mean, some more than others. I mean, I know people who have seen things, things in the sky.
Yeah.
But not only them, but their family have seen that thing. So you just wonder if there's some kind of a DNA thing, if there's some kind of a genetic thing that some people, but granted, some people have that ability. I kind of wish, I guess I wish I do, but maybe I don't. Maybe it's a blessing and maybe it's a curse. The Coleridge and Hoodoo. Hoodoo is both a blessing and a curse. And, be careful what you wish for. So maybe I'm good with what I have and who I am. Maybe I better not be asking for any kind of superhuman paranormal power. I wouldn't be able to handle it.
So, question though.
So I've just got one thing to add to that. Is that okay? I'll be really quick. So I was watching Discovery yesterday, and there's talking about the universe and the sun and the solar flares and that. I can't remember exactly what it was that they said, but there's one thing that stood out more than anything. Some of these solar flares that are coming through have the capability to change your DNA.
Wow.
Not just in humans, but any life form on Earth. And they didn't really go into detail about it. It's pretty much that. And it's like, well, if that's happening and we don't know about it, because I've not read or heard anything anywhere else about this, But they're just saying like the solar flares, some of that are that powerful that are coming through certain atmospheres can change your DNA.
Mm-hmm. I would think, I'm not a biologist, I'm not in that realm, but I would think that it wouldn't take a whole lot to go and change the DNA at a very basic level, at a very basic structure, whether it's radiation, who knows,
but they didn't mention what it was or anything. That was literally, it's just that one sentence of changing.
Or another thing too, I mean, in keeping with that, when you talk about the placebo effect with drugs, they did all these horrible studies back in the 50s where they would give college kids amphetamines and tell them they were barbiturates. Well, the kid would take the speed and they would get downed out. They would reverse it. They would give them barbiturates and tell them they were speed, and they would go and get that effect.
Yeah.
So it's what you think, it's what's in the head, it's what you believe. And the mind over matter just has so much power and authority about who we are and what we do. Again, if you don't like who you are, you could change who you are in 30 days. Give yourself positive affirmations, give yourself that positive mantra. If you're a business person, I'm going to go out there and make my quota. You say that every day.
Yeah.
And there's ways to do that, so nobody needs to be suffering in this life. Nobody needs to be thinking that they're pathetic losers. You can change that around. You can change that into a positive thing. I mean, we have that ability. And I mean, that may not be psychic or superhuman, but well, maybe it is. I mean, that's an ability to change who we are. We can do that. Most people don't. Most people follow the crowd where they're part of the 95%ers. Very few people take the role and are leaders. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And that's definitely like a psychology thing too, because people want that confirmation bias. Like if you were telling yourself and you were putting it out there that you are something, you're more likely to become that to prove yourself right.
Mm-hmm. It's, in 2016, I published that book, The Shepton Mythology. And I'm a rock journalist. I used to write about rock and roll, and I would write about addictions, and I loved sex, drugs, and rock and roll. So I would write about a lot of these rock artists that got ejected and they would crash and burn. So I did that a lot. And I wrote a lot about rock and roll. And in 2016, the Shepton book came out, and that changed everything. I mean, I didn't go looking for the paranormal. I sort of stumbled into it. But in those 9 years, being on podcast and talking to people, and that, it's just such an amazing, wonderful, validating experience. I mean, I can't say enough about the paranormal community being so welcoming and gracious and everything else. It's, I'm one of you. I'm part of the tribe, and what a good feeling to feel that, to say that's who I am. I'm Maxim Furek, paranormal author, and this is why. So, but again, the only thing I want to do, if I can add something to the genre, if I could go and maybe help define what the paranormal is, if I could do that through maybe language, through words, through hypotheses, then that's what I would like to do. Like I like to do what John Keel and H. Allen Hynek did. So, that's my goal. That's my, my holy grail that I'm, sort of looking for.
You have a pretty interesting section on your website about this whole celebrity blood voyeurism.
Yeah, for a while there, and I wore a bunch of hats, but I worked I was a psychologist, but I was basically, solely immersed in addictions and recovery. And that's a pretty amazing thing. When you ask the question, how does somebody get into recovery? How does a heroin addict get into recovery? Take somebody like Eric Clapton. Eric Clapton was an alcoholic and a heroin addict. He was able to kick the smack. He was able to kick the heroin, but not the alcohol. And he thought that if he kicked the alcohol, he wouldn't be able to play. But he finally was able to do that, a slow hand. But I used the term celebrity blood voyeurism. I coined that term years ago. And that's the public's fascination pathological fascination for celebrities that crash and burn, whether it's Amy Winehouse or Michael Jackson or Philip Seymour Hoffman. It doesn't matter who. I mean, the story's the same. They become famous and they can't handle the fame, and the fame, they find ways to destroy themselves. And Steven Tyler of Aerosmith said that fame is like 1,000 chickens pecking you at the same time. It's a very difficult, how many of us wish for that fame to be, rich and famous and all that, well, once you get that, it's like buyer beware, it's not what it should come with a little tag, so, and then the other thing, you hit it out of the park. You have this book that gets the Nobel Peace Prize and everything else. So you reach this level. How many people are actually able to go beyond that? I mean, it's like a drug addict trying to chase that high.
Yeah.
For some of us, we will never, ever attain that high again. With some rock bands that find that right 3-chord progression, that right groove, it's a miracle. It's something that's channeled down to them through God, and they do it and they sell 1 million copies, but they'll never do it again. So sorry, but
Yeah. See, I'm just be happy with being rich. I'm not bothered about fame. Yeah.
But with all of us, I mean, we maybe strive to hit it out of the park. What they say, Yola Tango.
Yeah.
It's out of there. Maybe we strive for that, but realistically, we're probably not going to do that because the odds are against us. So, given that, what's the deal? Why are we doing this? And the way I look at it, it's a journey. We're on this pathway, and I'm having fun. I'm meeting people like you, Andy, and you, Nicole, enjoying this. I'm having an audience that will actually listen to what I have to say, my ideas. I mean, where do you find this? I mean, this is like a wonderful thing. This validates me as a person. I mean, this is just a great thing. I can't say enough about what podcasts do, certainly for us authors, but it gives us a platform. It gives us a venue to talk about who we are in our research. And this is just so amazingly good. It's happening. I think in the future, they're going to be writing books about how podcasts have become such a have changed the culture, and it's not pay for play. It's a free thing that we do because we love each other. We share commonality. We share common values and all that. That's the good thing. It's not, and corporate America doesn't have a piece of it. So, or corporate UK, so,
Yeah, it's very different from the mainstream media because like on these platforms, we can kind of put out alternative ways of thinking, showcase people that wouldn't really make it, in traditional news outlets.
Yeah. And again, and just keeping with that hitting it out of the park mantra, for the people there that are listening, if you want to know the key to success, the key to success is perseverance. Keep on doing what you're doing. Keep on walking on that journey. Every now and then somebody will pat you on the back and say, you know what? You're heading in the right direction. That's all the validation you need. And at the end of the day, you're going to network and meet people and doors will open. That's the only key. Keep it going. And, when bad things happen, when things go sideways or what we call falling forward, that's just a glimpse. It's just a small little glimpse, let that go. But when good things happen, celebrate that with trusted others. I mean, just celebrate the wonderful things in your life. And because they're also just a glimmer, a little glimpse. Everything's fleeting.
Yeah.
Now, how far detached are we from the paranormal at this point?
But are we really? Because it all goes hand in hand. Because everybody out there in the paranormal is trying to do something, is trying to make a difference, make a change, and what you're saying goes right along with that.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I was being a little bit facetious there, but it's all part of the same. It's all part of the same. But again, with the paranormal, we're trying to define it. And one of my favorite people, one of my favorite pioneers was J. Allen Hynek, who gave us terminology. He gave us the term high strangeness. And, when you see a light up there, an orb, that's one level perhaps. But when that light is hovering over your car and you're bathed in a blue light and your car won't start and there's missing time, well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 elements of high strangeness. So one in itself may not mean much, but 5 of them are significant. And Hynek also gave us close encounters of the first, second, and third kind. And then people piggybacked on that. Now we have people that have been abducted. 1961, Betty and Barney Hill, the first one, and that turned into a cottage industry. And then you had Stephen Greer that gave us close encounters of the 5th kind, where if Andy, me, you, and Nicole got together and did a little kumbaya circle, maybe we could invoke the grace to come and visit us and manifest themselves. So, what Greer did was going back to the 1960s when hippies tried to levitate the Pentagon and all that other stuff. So, but again, the point being that Allen Hynek was the one who gave us that template, and other people have just added on to that. And I just say, cheers to J. Allen Hynek. I mean, he's one of the pioneers. He did a lot to legitimize the field of ufology.
Yeah, I've actually had Paul Hynek on
a
couple of years ago, and he was saying about his dad and his brother. Is it Joel? I think it's Joel. And it's just so, like you said, it's just so interesting of what his dad used to do that he could talk about, because obviously he couldn't talk about everything.
Yeah,
and it's just like what you just said. It just changed the way of everything.
Yeah, well, Hynek
people see it.
Yeah, he was a skeptic. He didn't believe in flying saucers. And he was a go-to person for the government's Project Sign, Blue Book, and Grunge. And he was discounting every single thing. And then Hynek eventually came around and said, wait a second, we are being disrespectful to these witnesses. Every witness that steps forward, we are saying, well, no, you're hallucinating, or you're needy, or you're neurotic, or you're something else, rather than saying, well, what time of day was it? Where were you standing? Were there any telephone poles? Could you gauge the height, the distance? Instead of doing the scientific method of getting intel, they were dragging down these witnesses. And who would want to come forward and say that they saw something or they were abducted when you have to go through this horrible, malicious castigation by the very condescending scientific community? Nobody would do that.
No. Yeah. Even now, people are still not willing to come forward because they know they're going to get laughed at, ridiculed, all the negative stuff, even though there is positive that goes with it. I don't think there's enough positivity in people sharing their encounters and experiences as what there should be.
Yeah,
and that was one of the reasons that I started doing this, because I've had that many different types of encounters. I thought, well, if I can share it, then it might make it more open for other people to come forward and talk about what they've gone through.
Yeah, in my book, The Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, if we could address that just for a moment.
Yeah.
Of course. Tonight's presentation. Yeah, but there's a chapter on Albert Osman. In 1924, Albert Osman was a Swedish-Canadian trapper-hunter. And this is his interesting story. I have a chapter about him, but he claimed that something was hanging around his campsite and stealing food and just messing things up. So Osman decided to hide inside of his sleeping bag with a rifle, and he was going to jump out of the sleeping bag and shoot the culprit. Well, what happened was something lifted him up and took him what he thought was miles, dropped him down into a valley. And here it was a family of Sasquatch, what you would call a mother, father, son, and daughter. They were very curious. They watched Osman. The young daughter gave him sweetgrass, fed him sweetgrass, and everything was pretty fine. But Osman got the idea in his head that they were going to use him for sexual purposes.
Yes. Can I just jump in? We was actually talking about this last week with Neil Ward, and I couldn't remember the guy's name, but I knew most of the detail to it. I just think this is so fascinating.
Oh, it really is, and it ties in with ufology.
Yeah. So please carry on. I just wanted to.
Oh yeah. No, I'm glad that at least they're talking about it. But this was 1924, so he had to make a plan to escape. He was freaking out, so he had chewing tobacco. He enticed the elderly Sasquatch to take the chewing tobacco. The Sasquatch got nauseous, so Osman took off, made it back home, and he didn't say anything for a while. This was 1924. And then in British Columbia, there started to be accounts about this mysterious Sasquatch creature. Well, Osman went to see John Green. He was a British Columbia journalist. And John Green was one of the original 4 horsemen of Sasquatchery, one of the pioneers. Yeah. Green took Osman's account, and he believed that it was true. The only thing that was different was that Osman didn't talk about a smell. You know, usually people that see Bigfoot, they talk about this stench, like a wet dog or fecal matter or rotten eggs. There was none of that. And maybe Sasquatch uses that as a means of chasing us away. Who knows? But anyway, John Green believed that Osman was telling the truth. This was in the days before computers, before microfiche, before we had the ability to go on Google and find out all we can about a Bigfoot, how they look and how they sound and all that. So the narrative that Osman gave was pretty accurate. It meshes with what we know today. But he told us things that we didn't know until years later. But that was 1924. As far as I know, that was the only incident of an abduction by a Bigfoot, 1924. Flash forward to 1961, Betty and Barney Hill traveling the White Mountains of New Hampshire. The missing time, something happened. They went to a Boston psychiatrist. He gave them regressive hypnosis. He believed that they were taken aboard a craft and probed and all that. That was 1964. That opened up the floodgates to alien abductions. You had people like Whitney Strieber, you had people like John Mack from Harvard, and you had tons and tons of people that came forward that said, I too have been abducted. I'm part of this thing. So whatever Betty and Barney Hill's account tapped into, numerous people, I mean, a whole lot of people and a whole lot of researchers also jumped aboard that thing, and it became larger than life. A lot of commonality there. I mean, whatever that is. So either there's something, some sort of psychological mechanism going on that we haven't been able to identify, or else there are a whole lot of people being abducted and probed and being used by the Greys for whatever their purposes are. Who knows? But, you know, the theories are numerous, but the accounts are pretty much, they have a lot of common denominators. So, you know, interesting. I mean, your thoughts on the alien abductions, Andy, Nicole?
Go on, Nicole. I'll throw you in the deep end.
Let's make Andy answer that.
I'm not sure, because people have a lot of stories. There are a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
So I would love to find out, you know, what is really happening. But these people, because we've had some people on the show and they have like these wild stories that are, you know, unbelievable, but that's their reality. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And they believe it, and they've stuck to their story, and their story doesn't change. What they don't know, they don't know. And they will say that. They don't make things up. So in their head, that is what happened.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because that's where I wanted to go with this. So even if this wasn't an actual physical
experience, right?
Experience, even if it did happen in the head, it still happened, regardless that their physical body wasn't, say the physical body didn't go or wasn't taken to a different dimension or different realm, or don't know, whatever you want to call it, a different time, their mind, soul, whatever you call it, that was taken. That, and like I've said before, your physical body might be what's stopping you to get to these other places where these other beings are. So you may have to go through in your consciousness, and that's the only way of getting there. I'm not saying it is that, but it would make a lot of sense. So if you go and they take you that way, whatever happens to you, you might feel it on your physical body, even though your physical body isn't there. But like Nicole said, it still happened. You still felt what they're doing. You've seen what they're doing, whether you've had a conversation with them as well. You've come back, and that stayed with you from that moment until present day. The stories have never changed. It's remained the same. They've had other contact or abduction encounters, and nothing ever changes. But for me, it doesn't matter whether you are there physically or mentally, it has still happened regardless. So
yeah,
it's whatever, trauma, or might not. I'm not saying it is always going to be trauma, because some people say it's been a good experience.
Yeah.
There are a couple of people in the chat that I know they've not enjoyed what's happened to them. So I can't comment on that, because I don't think that's happened to me. I've been told that have had encounters with them, but only as a contactee, not an abductee. So I don't know.
Yeah. We talk about how mysterious the mind is and how little we use and how little we know. But John Bradshaw, the psychotherapist who gave us the inner child theory, John Bradshaw said that a witness to violence is a victim of violence. And you may be this little kid and mommy and daddy are having a fist fight and everything. And even though you're not being pummeled physically, that's internalized. So you feel that. So you're a part of that trauma. And what you were saying about, actually accepting some of the stuff, they always say that if you want something, give it to the universe. Tell the universe, this is what I want. Let it unfold. Let that mechanism fall into place. Let all those cogs go into motion. And maybe that's it. Maybe we need to say, okay, it's okay to accept this. It's okay to say it's real. It's a reality. I mean, again, we need workable theories that we could all say, yes, I agree. I'm aboard with that. But, this is pretty amazing. I mean, I really love the way the direction that the conversation is going, because this is the direction it needs to go, just to find out where the pathway's taken us.
Yeah. Well, I agree with what you're saying, because we can't even agree in the paranormal community, the paranormal field, about terminology. What is a ghost? What is a spirit? What is an alien? And I think we all kind of need to get on the same boat with those things before we can prove to, mainstream, whatever, that this is what's happening.
Yeah. I'm in contact with a number of MUFON groups on the eastern United States. And by their philosophy, they do not believe in the interdimensional theory. None of this, what we call woo, the woo factor. They believe in the nuts and bolts, But however, when you talk to these folks one-on-one, they all believe in that. They all believe that the interdimensional theory is the one that explains it all away. We've been looking for nuts and bolts since before 1947, and Roswell, even with Roswell, what is Roswell but a mythology, a folk tale? I mean, there's, the Roswell incident was published in 1980. That was 33 years after Roswell. All the stories were second and third hand. People were dead, or they were, things were lost by that gap of time, and Roswell just became this marvelous mythology that we won't let go. And then part of it, of course, the government lied about Project Mogul and the weather balloons and everything else. So, so we believe that something happened there, and the government is covering it up. I mean, that is because the government lied.
Oh yeah.
And that's the mantra that till today we still keep on repeating. The government knows something. And how about this? And I apologize if I'm pontificating or just babbling. And if I am, Nicole, give me the little sign coming out. But remember, in the United States in July of 2023, they had congressional hearings. They invited David Grush, former military intelligence, to testify. Grush said he knows where the bodies are. He knows where the crafts are. This is classified information. He goes, I will reveal this under the right circumstances. That was July of 2023. Nothing has happened yet. November of 2024, same thing. They had congressional hearings with Luis Elizondo. Same thing. Elizondo knows that the government knows something. This was November of 2024. Again, we've come close, but the curtain has never parted. It hasn't been revealed. One thing I did as a paranormal researcher, when I was in Florida back in 2023, I wrote letters to 7 members of that congressional UFO committee, including Marco Rubio, Anna Paulina Luna, Chuck Schumer, and I forget the other 4. The only one that responded was Marco Rubio. Now, what I said was, let's force David Grush to show his hands, show your cards. I mean, you're talking the talk. Let's walk the talk. Where's the bodies? Where the crafts? And Marco sent me a letter back. And, and then I was getting ready for another letter. I think we were going to go back and forth. But during that time, Marco Rubio became the Secretary of State. So I lost my go-to guy with the UFO community. So now I'm starting from scratch. But I would encourage your listeners to do the same thing. Do your due diligence, write letters to your politicians, and encourage them to ante up and show us what they know. If anything.
But I'm just going to do this quickly because I have talked about this so much, but I'll have a private chat with you about this if you want, so I don't bore all the listeners. So you saying about you're putting stuff into the universe to get things back, and so I'd been asking for months to prove that this paranormal or 14 stuff is real. I just want something for me, or not just for me, but I want actual physical evidence that there's something happening that we don't know anything about. And this is what I've seen. So I'm just going to show you a couple of pictures of it. Now, this was rotating. I can't remember clockwise or anti-clockwise. There's a filtered picture of it on there. And this is a still from the podcast that we did on it. And then the next day there was another one. So the one on the right is the first one, the one on the left is day 2. And I'd been asking for and then to get it on film, to record it, to document it and everything. It's like I still can't believe that it was me that actually got the evidence of it. But it happened. There's other bits and pieces as well, like I'd see things crossing the road or weird stuff would happen and this, that, and the other. But these 2 were the main things that were like, wow factor.
Yeah. When did you shoot those and about what time of day was it?
Early morning. First one was around 9:15. The second one was 8:10, thereabouts. And one on the Monday, one on the Tuesday. And it was is it March? Beginning of March.
Okay. And this was in the UK?
Yes, Cambridgeshire.
Okay. And were they moving?
Nope, they was stationary. Well, the first one was stationary, just there. And I thought both of them were hot air balloons. The second one was at the side of me. I'm driving doing 65 miles an hour down the carriageway for 18 miles plus. And it kept up with me, but it got bigger. It didn't get nearer. It was expanding. And then when I turned, I was heading south. When I turned east, I should have seen it in my mirrors. There was nothing there.
Yeah, if the way this works, I mean, your sightings and everybody else's, if you could rule out things like temperature inversion, cloud anomalies, things that maybe we don't know about, secret stealth weapons, ours or theirs. If you could rule all that stuff out, then you have something that's anomalous. And the way it works is 3% of the things that we see out there are anomalous. We can't define what they are. They're ours, theirs, or somebody else's. Extraterrestrial, interdimensional. But again, 3%. And maybe what you're showing is part of that 3%.
Well, there's no noise, no lights.
We did try to rule out, because there's a lot of hot air balloons around there. So I did reach out to several companies that were flying in the area. And one of them said they did have balloons flying, but it didn't look like theirs.
It definitely wasn't a hot air balloon, because since then, I've seen about 10 hot air balloons. You can see the basket, you can see the flames, you can see everything that's going on with a hot air balloon. And I'll just show you quickly, because I don't want to bore everyone, because they've seen this.
This is exciting stuff. I mean, this is what we look for, and once we find it, we want to figure out what it is.
Just let me. So here we go. So I don't know if you can see, but this is. So that's just me. I took, because I've got an iPhone. It was a live photo, so you can see it rotating. But that's just me moving the phone away.
Yeah.
You can see it rotating.
There's one commonality between Bigfoot and flying saucers that I've discovered.
That's the original picture. So it doesn't even look like it does in the other photographs.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. There's one factor, one common denominator that I've discovered between Bigfoot and UFOs that nobody seems to recognize, and that's the element of boredom. And there was an article in the New York Times about does Bigfoot exist? And the reporter was saying that in all of these cases, the sightings are pretty much boring. They're all predictable. Bigfoot is not violent, malicious, doesn't attack. They're sort of curious. They look at us and then they go away. The sightings are just glimpses, maybe a minute.
Yep.
The Patterson-Gimlin film was only 58 seconds.
Yeah.
Your UFO sighting, whatever that was, took what? I mean, was it just a matter of seconds, or
the actual seeing it? The first one was about 5-10 minutes. I was driving towards it. That one was on a country road. I pulled up into like a little dirt track and then took the photo. I was on the phone to one of the guys in the chat. Mm-hmm. The second one, I'm driving down one of the main A roads, the main carriageway that goes from Northampton. Well, it goes east to west, west to east, obviously, depending on what way you're traveling. But I got on it and I probably did about 35, 40 miles. It wasn't until I got to a certain part that I seen this at the side of me. And I'm traveling along and it kept up with me for over 18 miles.
Wow.
A hot air balloon can't do that. Even if it had its own trajectory on there, it still couldn't keep up with the speeds that I was doing.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. The article that I was referencing, the author claimed that Bigfoot sightings are relatively boring, that nothing exciting or dramatic happens. They're all pretty much the same. You see them, they're curious and they go away. They're elusive. Yeah. But the other thing too that he didn't mention, there's also the paranormal aspects of Bigfoot. For example, they don't walk, they tend to glide. They don't reflect light, they tend to emit light. Some people talk about it, they can communicate telepathically. They talk about that you could see them in front of you and then behind you. They have that bilocation, that rapid transport. So there's things about Bigfoot that, and also the other thing too, that just is something that relatively new, the connection between Bigfoot and UFOs or flying saucers.
Yes.
And I use that terminology rather than UAPs just because, it speaks to me. It's more earthy.
Yeah.
But with that connection, we've seen numerous things where Bigfoot seems to be coming out of this orb, or it's going into an orb and being transported someplace. So who knows what that is? But in Western Pennsylvania, there's a place called Chestnut Ridge. and it's probably the spookiest place we have in Pennsylvania. It's a 3, 4, 5 county area where we see the most Bigfoot sightings, but also Bigfoot and UFOs in tandem. And when I first heard this, I thought, no, this is ridiculous. This is just, poppycock. This is just boulder dash. Give me some other adjectives. It's not going to happen. But there's numerous things like this. And we have guys out in Western Pennsylvania that document this stuff. And I mean, there's been numerous stories about Bigfoot and flying saucers together. So whatever that is, I don't know what that is. The only thing it does, it speaks to me that there's a paranormal aspect to both of these, and they may be connected somehow. And I don't know how, but, it seems like it gets weirder the more we know.
Oh, definitely. 100%. We had Jason Kenzie on Canada. Yeah. And he was saying when he's been out in the field and he's been doing his investigations and he's seen what looks like a Bigfoot type creature behind the tree, he's gone running to it, not taking his eyes off the tree. He's got there and there's nothing there. There's no evidence that it's gone up the tree, around the it's just it's nowhere to be seen. And that's first-hand experience.
Yeah. So and he knows
what happened. Yeah.
He's been
doing it. He's been doing it forever. So it's just, where do they go? How do they go?
That's the argument for interdimensional, that they just pop out of the dimension. Back where they came from.
Unless they have some kind of supernatural powers where they can camouflage themselves.
But why not? One theory too is that as man evolved, we talk about the missing link, and I always I talk in the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot that there is no missing link. If anybody tries to tell you there's a missing link, they are misinformed or they're trying to bamboozle you. And the way it works is there was a SCA, a single common ancestor, way back when. Apes evolved from that and evolved successfully. Later, man evolved, climbed the trees, came down as Homo erectus, as Neanderthal, as Homo sapiens. And they interbred. Some of us have Neanderthal DNA. Well, I mean, we know that's nothing earth-shattering. But one theory is that as man developed, as humankind developed cognitive abilities, that perhaps Neanderthal developed these psychic abilities.
Yeah.
And, we have a lot of information about Neanderthal only because they made their caves in sandstone caves, so their bodies were preserved. We know that they had family structures, that they buried their dead. They might have had language, probably might have had a religion, all that, but they might have had psychic abilities. And that's one of the theories about Bigfoot, that Bigfoot has shared psychic abilities with perhaps a Neanderthal or something similar. Not a missing link, because there's no such thing. There's nothing to link man with ape or man with Bigfoot, because that tree, that sprouted millions of years before that. So, but anyway, that's the theory. And I'm trying to think of who the English researcher was that talked about Neanderthal having psychic abilities. His name's not coming to me, but anyway, we take a look at these theories and we hang our hat on one of them, the one that makes the most sense. So that's what we need to continue to do. Just, a different path of evolution, of course. Yeah. And again, but we don't know, and we're still looking. And a lot of the researchers thought that either Neanderthal or Gigantopithecus was that link to Bigfoot. And Giganto, of course, looked like orangutan. It was the largest beast ever, 12 foot, humongous. And Giganto died out because after planet change, it was too big to climb the trees to get the fruits and berries. And it just had to eat the acorns and the bark and everything else, and died out. It couldn't get the nutrition. But Giganto was too big to endure. So, but Giganto is a...
Sorry, go ahead, finish. Sorry.
No, but Giganto was the that evidently came over to the Pacific Northwest from Asia through the Bering Strait when everything was connected, and that's the theory for Giganto. So, who knows?
So on the topic of like evolution, and we were talking about DNA before, have you heard the theories that people who have Rh negative blood are more psychic, more in tune?
I don't think I've heard. I don't think I have enough of that knowledge to discuss it. But what are your thoughts on that? I mean, that sounds pretty intriguing.
So supposedly, people who have Rh negative blood, it's a very high percentage of people who are involved in the paranormal. They say a lot of contactees and abductees are Rh negative. So I haven't looked too much into it, but it is an interesting theory that's going around. And Andy, you're Rh negative, right?
No.
I thought you were.
No, my mum was. I'm AB negative. And apparently AB negative is more rare than Rh negative.
But Rh
so I'm
is just
told.
a positive or a negative. It's the rhesus negative.
Yeah, but AB.
Yeah.
And I'm AB negative. Yeah, still negative. Mm-hmm. That's all I know. I only know because he had an operation a few years ago, and I asked him. Because it's the only way of finding out. So.
Yeah, I don't think I have any of that, but I'll check that out. That's interesting. One thing I will say, I think that you take people with psychic abilities, I'm sure there's commonalities that they all share. One thing I know, I've done a bunch of research on Dr. Frederick Santee, the White Witch, the high priest for the Coven of the Kata. And people that joined his coven typically were doctors and lawyers and researchers, people that had a hunger for knowledge, for information. And so they naturally joined the coven. And when we talk about the coven, when we talk about the Wicca craft, we're talking about God being in everything, the sky, the tree, the rocks, everything. It's a pantheistic religion. God's in everything. It was before the days of Christ, not a religion that was connected with satanic rituals, not a religion that was in league with the devil. It was none of that, but it has that horrible reputation. But the reason people joined the Wicca religion is because it allows you to go and tap into your psychic abilities. That's why people do it. And so rather than going to a church where you have a minister or a shaman or a rabbi, you become your own minister, your own shaman. You have your own church and you tap into your own innate psychic abilities that we all have. And that is what the Wicca craft does. They believe that with a coven with 12 or less, you could have a circle of healing where you could pray over somebody to help them, cure them of their cancer, their leukemia, similar to a prayer circle in Christian circles where you call your friends and say, like Emma Lou is dying of cancer. Let's say prayers for her. And so like people collectively pray for this person, and they talk about the power of prayer. So this is part and parcel of the paranormal, whether it's the power of prayer or the power of a coven using their innate powers. It's all pretty much the same, but with different names.
Yeah. That I've never heard of that before.
Yeah.
Well, when your listeners score a copy of Coleridge Hoodoo, they can read all about it, because I think that articulates it well. But if anything, I know we were supposed to talk about the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, which is my latest book. But please consider, if you're gonna, if any of this sounds of interest, take a look at Coleridge Hoodoo, Paranormal Tales from Inside the Pit. Hoodoo representing either a blessing or a curse. And it's my probably my most favorite book, only because I placed so much time and effort into it, and also we're getting some rave reviews on Amazon. So how about that? That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I'm just getting this is it. I'm gonna get a copy. Have you done it? I was gonna get an image of the book.
Okay.
1 second.
Yeah, well, if you've ever, seen the show before, everybody in the chat knows, like, we start off on one topic, but we kind of just go where the conversation goes. I think it's more natural and more organic that way.
Yeah.
We've got some interesting places.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, very good. Okay, yeah, there it is. Okay. Coleridge Hoodoo, Paranormal Tales from Inside the Pit by Maxim W. Furek, author of the Shepton Mythology. Yeah. I like it. I think I'll get one of those.
Yes. Yes, I think I'll have to get one of each.
We're coming up on the end. I just want to make sure we get this question in, if that's okay.
Yeah, you got 15 minutes to go.
Yeah, but you know how that goes. It always goes too quick. This question from Elaine. What do you think of astral travel?
Yeah, it could be sort of like a type of out-of-body experience. I think it's something that we might be able to manifest again with in the Shepton mythology. I don't know what I just did. With the Shepton mythology, I talked about Saint Teresa of Avila and the ability to reach that point of an out-of-body experience, and through prayer and meditation. But I think that we can all tap into something like this. I recently was invited to a esoteric conference. The guy sitting next to me was from San Francisco, and he worked for the federal government with remote viewing. And I wanted to just wanted to pick his brain and ask him, all kinds of stuff. But he goes, I can't tell you anything. So he told me he's in remote viewing, but he wouldn't tell me anything. But here's my theory. I believe that the American government, probably every single government on earth that has the means, has different departments that are looking into things like remote viewing, astral projection, mind travel, mind control, time travel, all of those things to give us a military edge. I think they're secreted within a black ops program. There's dark money there. And whenever we have those congressional UFO hearings, these politicians are not privileged for that information. They're not going to tap into it. No. I mean, they may talk about it, but they're just not going to get that because it's too many layers beneath where they want to be. It's clandestine. It's hidden. It's just hidden, and probably even the president using plausible deniability doesn't know about it. So they're pretty much rogue entities, almost like AI, just going rogue, doing something for the good of the order, whatever that might be. So this is where the fear is. This is where we need to be afraid, because this isn't like the CIA or the FBI. This is something else that we don't even know about. We don't even know what their acronyms are. And this is the thing that scares me, because we don't know, we're not allowed to know, we don't have any need to know. Some of these things are on a need to know basis, where very few of us have a need to know this secret information. So when we talked about Long Island, and we talked about the Montauk program, where the government had this place where they did mind control experiments and everything. The government probably does have groups like that, but it wasn't in Montauk. It's someplace else, and it's not. Place. It's all over. And again, if you think that I'm talking craziness, just revisit the CIA's MK Ultra experiments where they dosed people with LSD and then la-di-da, they just waited to see what happened. Well, what happened was scientists jumped off the buildings and committed suicide. That's what happened.
Well, it started off with the Philadelphia experiment. Then it went to MK Ultra. Then it went to Montauk. But that's just them. I think that's not even the tip of the iceberg with what they're saying, what actually happened. Because I don't mean to butt in, but I need to say this before we go. It's been on the news in the UK that America are building a hydro collider a mile below the ground to find out why the universe is working the way that it does and how it's creating things. And when you have, is it dark matter and white? It's not white matter, it's something else. I can't remember what they said. The two shouldn't work alongside each other. One should cancel the other one out, but it's not doing. So they're trying to find out why. So they're building another CERN over in the US.
Yeah,
I can't remember where it is.
Yeah, there was one, I think, under either Illinois or Indiana, and then they moved that. But what they're trying to do, they're trying to go and have these particles collide, and they're looking for what's called the God particle. The God particle, which that's where it all begins. The life begins, the DNA, everything. So that's what they're looking for. And some scientists are concerned because if we don't do it right, finding that God particle could just rip apart the whole fabric of our essence, of our time, space, whatever this is, this terra firma. So it's not without, it could be problematic, so, even with the Manhattan experiment, we were lucky that we were able to go and contain those chain reactions. Because if that just kept on going, I mean, that's Armageddon. That's the end of the world. So, we're playing around with, some very precarious things. The world may end on its own, or it may end at our own hand. But in keeping with that theory, if I may, or that topic, I want to talk about Paranormal Apocalypse. Is This How It Ends? And that's my forthcoming book, the author of the Shepton mythology. And I claim that we are, and that's a gray in the guise.
I was just about to say, I like the cover because it's not a skeleton or anything. It's a gray, gray dressed as a Grim Reaper.
So that's going to be a gloomy read, and we'll see what happens. But I talk about fear being one of the commanding emotions of humankind. That we're ruled by fear through politicians, religion, society, you name it. A lot of us think the world's going to end. And you just mentioned it too, Andy. The God particle. Some people think that may destroy the earth, that experiment. Yep. So, there's a lot. Or, the next pandemic. Or
we're waiting on that, aren't we?
Or World War III. Who knows what's going to happen. I mean, both India and Pakistan got bombs. I mean, big bombs.
Yeah.
I don't know.
World War III, the whole concept is going to be interesting because, they could go with like nuclear weapons, but they also could go with cyber attacks and taking the grid down. Like, there's a lot more interesting ways that could go than back then.
Well, that's what they've been doing in the UK. All the big shops, supermarkets and that are being hit by cyber attacks. And one of the biggest ones, Marks and Spencer's, is, I think they're the people that have got the shares with them. They're saying, like, hold on, don't worry, blah, blah, blah. But they're taking a loss of like 300 million in the first so many months.
Oh, wow.
And then they've hit Aldi and a few other shops. I didn't really listen to it. Got bored after that. You can't beat Aldi anyway.
Yeah. The bad guys, I don't know. I don't know who's doing it. I don't know if they're from Iran or North Korea or China or.
Well, they said they've got a list of people that they think that they know who's doing it, but they can't work out how they're doing it or where it's coming from. So basically, the guessing is what they're doing.
Okay, but imagine that on like a wide scale. Like, okay, the banks are down, the shops are down. They could take everything down.
Yeah. This is just 2, 3, 4 supermarkets in the UK, and it's had a massive knock-on effect. So
they've done that in stateside with hospitals. They've held hospitals hostage until they pay the ransom monies.
Wow.
So that's been going on. It's a wicked world out there. It's a wicked cyber world. The technology. I don't know. It's scary. And as an author, I know at least one person that's using AI to write his books, and I think that's the most horrible thing that you could do. That's just play. That's not writing. That's just, stop, I mean, pick up another career. Don't be a writer. You're not a writer, So, that is pretty disgusting.
That's the way that everything's going right now. Like graphic designers are being replaced with people who are AI artists who just put the right prompts in.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But that sounds bad, because I did art and design at college and what have you. But I do use AI to create a lot of the stuff that I use for the channel. But it's only because I don't have the time to sit down and do it. I work a full-time job. I have family life. I do have a social life, believe it or not.
Yeah.
And I would have to stop doing all of that just to create different designs for each podcast every week.
Yep.
And no one's got the time for doing that.
Right. Well,
Nobody.
AI is supposed to be able to help us in the medical industry, and all that. So there may be some good things about it, but I think we need to be cautious, because we may reach a point where AI starts thinking for themselves and anticipating our likes and our needs and our wants. And, so we may be there now. And it's just scary. If you Google your name, the stuff that comes up, I mean, there's no secrets, God, it's scary.
Yeah, but it also makes stuff up. Apparently, I'm a Norwegian award-winning something or other. So
we played around with that one day
in my life.
We asked ChatGPT to do bios, and they were completely wrong. They made us look really, really good, but it was a bunch of stuff that we didn't do.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've changed the description of the YouTube channel and the podcast because it was too long. So I did it on ChatGPT over the weekend, and it's like just 2-3 paragraphs, and it just looks a lot better than what it did before. And I will for those who haven't seen it, this is literally what it was. Because not everyone reads the description, but I'll put it on there regardless. And that is what it says. Welcome to Alienate UK, your exclusive gateway to the unknown, only available on YouTube, podcast, and Audible. We decode the shadows, chase the lights in the sky, explore the truth that they don't want you to know. From ancient mysteries to alien contact, from deep conspiracies to future tech, Alienate UK isn't just a broadcast, it's a signal, and you've just tuned in. Subscribe, stay alert, and remember, it's where the paranormal becomes normal. I did tweak it a little bit because there's some things that didn't make much sense, but basically it was that.
It's smooth. I like that. That works.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. So I like it for things like that. But the amount of times I put stuff in, it's like, delete, that's crap, delete, that's crap. Even images, bios, whatever it is I'm looking for, it probably takes 10, 20 goes at it to get something that's usable.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is like how much of what we do is completely original, and probably very little. Everything is a result of what we've heard or learned or experienced from somebody else. Certainly, as as a paranormal author and researcher, I mean, that's based on so many books and theories that I've come across, and that's just the way it is. So doing that, I mean, that works. I certainly approve. I think that would, that's what you want to do, and
just the little things. That's what I use it for.
Yeah,
just because of how time consuming it is to, as you know, if you're creating stuff, how long it takes to get exactly what it is you need.
Yeah, I did want to say, excuse me, for your listeners, with the Lost Tribes of Bigfoot, I'm getting hoarse now. We have a thing called IBT in the book. It's called Immersive Book Technology. And if you take your phone's camera, there's barcodes throughout the book, and that'll open up a video of me doing say a 3-minute video synopsis of that chapter. So they're throughout the book, and it's sort of I don't know, renewed technology. It's really pretty nice. And people that have seen the book think it adds another dimension, almost like an interpersonal, interactive, aspect to it. So I'm really pleased with that. IBT, and that's created by the the people from Hangar 1. So I'm really pleased with that.
Oh, excellent. Right, we have. Oh, yes. We have come up to the end of the show. We are at the 90-minute mark. So I want to say a massive thank you for coming on, and hopefully you'll come back on again in the near future.
Okay. Well, I've decided to stay here for another 90 minutes, so I'm not going away.
Don't tempt Andy. He will. We've done that.
Andy, that's just part of our American humor,
Yeah. No. You know what? If I didn't have work tomorrow and people didn't want to go to bed, then I would stay forever.
Okay.
I'd just be here forever. So I just want to say a massive thank you, Maxim. Thank you for everyone in the chat. Thank you to our moderators, Gerald, Jane, Nickname, and Elaine. Really do appreciate it. Thank you, everyone in the chat. Thank you to all the members and subscribers. Thank you for everyone that tuned in on the live investigation-ish thing we did on Saturday. The highest number yet, 460 people were watching. Wow. Don't know how we got that number, but it's there. It's right in front of me. So, and we're just coming up to 600 views. So thank you, everyone that helped with that. So I'm going to kick us all off now. We're going to be back next Wednesday with Jim Goodall of Skunkworks. He's going to be talking to us about UAPs and Tic Tacs and everything else that's going on up in the sky, and see where that goes. So thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Maxim. Are you okay to stay just as we get to the end of this? Is that all right?
Absolutely, sure.
Going to be you all right as well, Nicole?
Yeah, quick thing. I will be on tonight at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, which is 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Really, really late UK time. On
That's
Unraveling the Darkness podcast.
Ooh, excellent. Yeah, so nice. If you put the link up, will I do the outro and then we go from there? So I'm going to boot us all off, do some voiceovers and play the outro, then come straight back on. But we'll be ended by then. So have a great week and weekend, everyone. I am at the Cryptid Conference at the end of the month where we're going to be doing some live podcasts, live interviews, and some other things going on. So we'll see you next Wednesday. Have a wonderful week and weekend, and we'll speak to you guys very, very soon.
This episode will also be available as audio wherever you listen to your podcasts: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, etc., as well as being available on Audible. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Goodbye. Goodbye.